The second day of the June 86 retreat. There are 3 different announcements. The person in the audio room who's doing the taping said that someone was using the tape recorder or tape player in there and is requesting that please nobody use the tape player in the audio room, or anything in the audio room for that matter. If somebody wishes to hear a tape, then please get in touch with the coordinators. These are the 2 people who are sitting on each side of the exit entrance door, the main door to the balcony. If you've come in late and want to hear the opening talk of the first evening or other talks, there was only one talk, then get in touch with Stu or Dave and they will arrange for that somehow. Another announcement is if you hear that it's raining during the night, please close your windows so they are just barely open, even though we don't have the trim and it looks as though nothing would get hurt. It is bad for the water to get into the insulation between the windows, etc. During the regular day, the coordinators will take care of closing the windows when there's a rainstorm. When you're sitting in the solarium because you want to go to a meeting and the talking in the meeting room becomes audible, then please turn the fan on low. And that'll cover up the sound of the voices. This doesn't have to be done for everyone, and it's hard for some people to bear with a constant hum of the fan. So it can be turned off again when there is no sounds coming out of the meeting room. Of course, if it's very hot, then the fan is also useful for being fanned. Yesterday, we talked about our usual way of doing things, working in our everyday life, namely doing something for the sake of something else. And we mentioned particularly working in order to get a paycheck, earn a livelihood, or climb the ladder of success to get advancements and promotions. Or doing something in order to be praised, to get approval, to be liked by others, to feel safe. One can watch it and question whether one is really with something or has an eye out on the results of what one is doing. Or the mind may be totally wrapped up in fantasy about something else, not what this work will bring, but what one did yesterday or would like to do in the future. One person brought up, let me say something about when things are brought up that people say in meetings. I don't think I said that yesterday. Most, most of the talks these days come out of what is brought up in meetings. And in bringing up a question that was asked, I hope nobody feels put on the spot by this. It is not done with that in mind. It's only brought up if this keeps the person who asked that question anonymous. And also, very often, the question is not what was asked verbatim. I'm not able to remember verbatim what somebody said, nor what I said. But the question is alive, and it may be rephrased or combined with other similar questions. Because it is felt that it is a question for all of us to look at and to open up in depth. One person said, you said nothing about working in order to fulfill oneself, or working because it is good for us to work. It is good for one to work. And as I think back, this is how I've approached work all along, thinking it must be good for me to work, and hoping to find self-fulfillment in work. The person who said that felt that something was glimpsed, that there can be a completely different way of working, not with that idea or assumption in mind that it is good for one. That is something we have heard our whole life, isn't it? Or the opposite of it, if one doesn't work, one is lazy or a freeloader. Recently talked to a person who has been laid off, has lost his job, who's a very conscientious worker, and he's come to talk regularly now that there's time, and said it's unbelievable to him how guilty he feels about not working. He's ashamed to even be out when the neighbors are out, because the neighbors may ask, what are you doing? And just calling himself these, is this where this word freeloader came from? Calling himself that. And then if you call yourself something, what happens? You respond to what you've just called yourself, to the new image, with depression, guilt. Actually, in asking him what he was doing, he said that he was doing all the shopping, all the cooking, painting the house, mowing the lawn, and his wife loves it. It's just a reversal of parts being played in this family unit where one person brings enough money for both of them to live, and the other one takes care of the home. But if one is beset by an image of what one should be doing as a man or as a woman, and that image is not fulfilled by what one is actually doing, then no matter what one is doing, there are these feelings of inadequacy, insufficiency. Do you see that? How we do it to ourselves? There have been books written about the Protestant work ethic. There were times in our history when the religious teaching combined with preaching how to work, and that the success in work demonstrated that one was a good person, agreeable to God. It's linked with religious doctrine too, at least in countries where this religion is or was strong. Where does one get these ideas from? These are ideas, or aren't they? One may work all one's life and has not enjoyed or loved one moment of it, and yet feels one has done good, one has done the right thing, and then deriving satisfaction, or at least the assuaging of guilt from that idea that one has worked and that it is good to work. Working for the sake of merits, being agreeable to others or to God. As long as these ideas play, move one, motivate one, give one boosts of energy in the morning when one feels depressed about getting up, how can one be with what one is doing completely? It's impossible. When this is for the sake of something in the future, the eyes are on the future, not on what's here. The question whether there can be work to fulfill oneself. Actually, when work is fulfilling, we'll look into that word a little bit later, when it's so hard to talk about this. Most of us come through some kind of a training, Zen training or spiritual training, where one has heard that one should be one with what one is doing, whatever one is doing. And if one is one with it, then all is fine. Then truth is expressing itself. But what does it mean to be one with something? To be with something completely. It can be mouthed so quickly, so easily. But what does it really mean? Has one ever done it? Has it ever happened? Or actually, when it's happening, there's no awareness of the fact that it is happening. No self-conscious awareness, I am one with it. At that moment, there's already a separation taking place. The I, the new image of the one who is one with what he or she is doing, And with that comes a certain pride or satisfaction, a feeling of fulfillment, which doesn't last, because as long as one is living in this separate image of me, there's bound to be trouble. Fear, loneliness, pain, ambition, difficulty in relationship. To be one with something implies that there is someone to be one with something else. But who is that someone that becomes one? Is this the whole mass of our assumptions, our training, our wants, our yearnings, our intentions? And then in order to get this feeling of oneness, concentrating on what one is doing, to a point of self-oblivion. That's what happens very often in work. I think we mentioned it yesterday, that one works in order to forget oneself and one's problems, one's restlessness, one's loneliness or inner emptiness, filling it with work. But the moment the work ends, either one looks for something else to do, or one is back with these feelings which are created by the separate, by being attached to the separate entity of me. All the images that are connected with me, my past, my future, my needs, my rights, my wants, my problems. So the question we're asking here is it possible to do something not for the sake of something else, not because one is told it is good for one or one will achieve a state of oneness, to find fulfillment or to leave one's worries behind, to get peace of mind, to earn merits for the later life or the next life, but to wonder what it is that is right before one, right under one's feet, under one's nose, under one's eyes, right in front of one. And to see those thoughts that we've just mentioned, all those images and assumptions and hopes, see them come up, but see them for what they are, namely ideas, images, thoughts, which are instantly separating from what one is doing. I think that can be glimpsed if one needs to find out about this. How do I work? How do I sit? How do I walk? How does anything happen? What's going on this moment? And I think it does happen when the mind is not in the knowing mode, knowing what everything is, by labeling it, talking to oneself about what one is doing in a sort of constant running commentary, but noticing that and attending afresh. wondering what every instant of action or no action is without knowing it. And if you wonder deeply and strongly and passionately enough, there will be attention. Of course there will be. There is. One person asked, does this mean that we should practice attention or cultivate attention? Can one practice it? Can one cultivate it? To look, to experiment with it, find out whether attention is practicable or cultivatable. I think what can be practiced and cultivated is concentration, single-mindedness as it is called, many spiritual traditions, one-pointedness, practicing to focus the mind on one thing to the exclusion of everything else. But if one honestly observes not just this very one-pointed, one single-minded action, but all that goes with it before, during, and after, one will find that one has a motive in doing that in order to attain something, to get someplace with it, to become more concentrated, less scattered. And with that there is the image of the concentrator, either the poor concentrator or the improving concentrator. And with image goes self-satisfaction or self-deprecation. With image goes comparison with others who seem to be much more advanced in their power of concentration, and then wanting to become like them. And if one feels one is becoming better, then one is that much farther removed from those with whom one compares oneself favorably. In almost all spiritual traditions, there is the implicit or explicit classification of people into advanced, developed people and not so advanced, not so developed people, which fits right into our whole conditioning that we're already bringing to it. The power of this kind of a system over us, to want to be in that elite group, knowing all the agonies of not being in the elite, and once in the elite, then the self-satisfaction, and even there, the not enough of it. Because when something is not done completely, meaning no one there to do it, just what's there and the doing of it, when that is not complete, then one wants more. More of the same or something different. Because the me is still at work with its images of improvement or sliding back. Actually, concentration and practicing of concentration is not limited by any means to work that is done in spiritual traditions. All of our athletes have, in one way or another, developed power of concentration. How else could one go from the top of a almost vertical hill downhill in a ski race over incredible bumps and curves and icy slopes, totally in disregard of whether one will break one's neck. Just that, and probably one thought of not where one is and one will fall. Maybe not break one's neck, but a leg or an arm, an injury. Extremely dangerous. So enormous concentration to be with what one is doing, not looking left or right. Only, and we've all observed it when one sees the champions going through the final gate there, swinging around and stopping. There's still great elegance in it. And then the look up to the score. How did I do? How do I compare with who went down before me? And that thought was probably there at the start. I got to do it. I got to make it. I must be the best one, get the gold medal or something. So the concentration is in a most limited channel. The channel determined by the motive and the outcome. And with this go either utter elation or utter depression and dejection. Also mention a different example once. I'll mention the same example again. Many people may not have heard it. It's a good example of how limited awareness can be. It happened once in a retreat when just before a round started, somebody was putting on a jacket. It was cold. Since the person was standing right in front of me, there was possibility of watching. The way this person put on the jacket was what seemed perfect awareness. One could feel how the arm was slipping through the sleeve, the care with which the other arm slipped through the other sleeve, the care of pushing each button through the buttonhole, all the way down. The person was with it. It just happened that someone else was standing next to this person trying to get through the aisle. It wasn't this narrow aisle here, piled with cushions left and right. But this was not being noticed by the one who was putting on the jacket. So this person patiently waited. And of course, when we're very aware, we take our time. So finally, the person climbed over several cushions to get around this aware person. He never noticed it. This is just an example which happens to all of us, how one can get caught up in one's awareness. The awareness has a limited arena, a limited stage and a limited auditorium or audience, which is oneself, usually. As the image, very likely, of how aware one is, how well one is doing this. And with this image, the blinders are on. One doesn't see who's next to one. So to look whether there is indeed me doing the concentrating, doing the meditating, doing the awareness for the sake of something else, for the sake of an image sometimes, just for the sake of fulfilling this image. And if one sees it, does that image hold? Can it survive? One sees how isolating it is, how separating, how lonely. It's just a thought. Is that what I am? Just a bunch of thoughts and images? To be fulfilled and affirmed and confirmed? Because that's what images need. They need to be constantly confirmed or affirmed by others or by oneself. Can one see that as it happens and be done with it? Take another look, take a fresh look. Listen anew to what's actually happening when this show is over or interrupted. Because that's what it is, an internal show going on of the story of our life. It's a powerful show. It has tremendous energy and momentum in it. But it can be seen. Spotted, detected, and finished. So we came from the question, is attention practicable or cultivatable? Maybe we've answered it or are answering it. If we really try to find out how a moment of awareness comes about, and I don't mean by that awareness seeing oneself in a limited way, thinking about oneself, attaching to the image that one sees, but awareness in which there is no self to be confirmed or attacked. Just pure listening, pure attending, with no purpose, no goal or no end in mind. How did that come about? How did that happen? Did I think I gotta get that and there it is? It doesn't work that way. If we think I get to get that, we're involved in our memories. We're scanning, what did I do last time that it came about? Or we're thinking about how nice it would be, or so forth. Please, this is all open to inspection by each one of us. I think this moment of attention and awareness is just there when the involvement with self is quiet, is absent. Involvement, what I was and will be and am now, all of that in abeyance. Then there's attention. And how does it happen? I don't know. I wouldn't know. Can one observe how it comes about? It's not a process in which it comes slowly about. There is awareness. And the last thoughts still reverberate as a now memory of what was, the inattention, the concern with oneself, with one's image. That at this moment reverberates as a memory. And if one doesn't fall into the trap of now wanting to hold this precious moment, then it's there. It doesn't have any time to it. It doesn't have any future to it or any past. It just embraces everything and everyone. There's infinite space for everything to be as it is. Then the thought comes, can I cultivate this? Can I practice this? And the vastness is gone. The program now is running again. The mode of wanting something. Or how do I maintain it? How do I get it back? How did I do it? Which has nothing to do with awareness. It's how we've been trained to think and act. Everything has to have a how to do it, or how not to do it. And this awareness defies all of that. It has no how. It's either there or it isn't there. And rather than getting all frustrated or feeling hopeless that there is no how to get it, can the how mode drop, be quiet? Seeing its utter futility and not touching it, not entering into it. Even though it comes up, it's seen. This is totally different from anything we've been taught and trained. But isn't this what we're coming here for? To see all of this old stuff and question it thoroughly. Not try to find a justification for it or a continuation for it. More of the same in a new garb. But to question it, to put it on the line. Wonder whether it has to be this way, whether one has to continue with this habit. We think we do, but we don't have to. First we have to see it, and then we have to question it and wonder about it. And if it's true wonderment, then we truly don't know whether anything has to continue, has to be this way, or what anything is for that matter. What I am, what these others are, that we're so hemmed in by or reaching out towards the others. Who are the others? Who am I? Isn't it an incredible relief not to know and to approach it freshly? It's a new use of energies. Energies gathering in this not knowing. And therefore, all the senses wide open. All the senses means the total organism, mind and body. Open also meaning vulnerable. Because in openness and not knowing, there is no habitual protection. That risk is taken. If one protects oneself from being hurt, I mean psychologically hurt, of course we protect ourselves from being physically hurt. We don't have to intend to do that, it happens automatically. Somebody throws something at us and we go like that. But all the psychological defense of what? Look at it when you feel hurt or intruded upon or criticized or disapproved of or just not looked at lovingly. What is it that gets hurt? Hurt or threatened. You'll say, well, I feel hurt. But let's not stop with this word, but look what it is that gets hurt. What is this I that is threatened? When it's not a physical threat, a psychological threat, an injury, an insult, a criticism, or not I am looked at, but the person next to me. Don't we live in images most of the time, and these get hurt? So coming back to this openness, it's clear there can't be openness if one is protecting an image. But can the image reveal itself in this openness and remain to do whatever it wants to do, but not protect it, not defend it, maintain it, uphold it, present it for approval? To see all of that and be vulnerable. Not the image of vulnerability or humility. Not the image of it. We will end here for today.